working? It's working. You're right, hear me? Okay, so I have you know I put a lot of time preparation into this. Did? I found out I was doing this Tuesday. Okay, so you can almost say this demo is sponsored by Craft Supply. This is literally where I got everything. I looked it up while I was sitting down. What I have here is, I think it was $88 to get the 3 colors and the small size, the activators, the spray things, and I got the large bottle of primer. So it's not cheap, but I just figured I'd let everyone know, because I'm sure everyone's going to want to know how much this stuff costs. So I did bring in bowls that I've done in the past. You know, where this is cherry with copper with one of the, I think it's probably the green patina. And then the rim is the bronze paint. And then it's cherry. And then this was some sort of maple, I forget. This is the iron paint with the rust activator added on it. And then I did the rim in copper. And then I did the green activator, I would assume, on the copper. And then the rust activator on the iron paint. And then this one, I tried something different, gave it more of a rush look. I did the whole thing in copper, and I tried patina the outside, and I didn't try to patina the inside. As you can see, my fingers must have got on it or something. And then on this one, this is bronze. I thought this was the, looks like it was the blue. I didn't get a whole lot of the activator on this one apparently. And then I left the inside natural. I found that I do like it better if I don't coat the entire thing with it, so you can still see that it's actually wood. Last night, and then I did a base, and I did the whole outside in the bronze paint, and then I did the blue activator, as you can see on that. I made this up last night, because I've often wondered when I've been doing it, if the green and the blue activator really looked different, because it hasn't really seemed like it to me. I know on some of them, I think I sprayed both of them, and I can't really tell the difference. So these two are the copper. I did the green on this side, the blue on this side. There's a light difference. You know, it's hard to tell. The red in between is the color of the primer. And then on the bottom here, I did, for kicks and giggles, just the rust activator on those, just to see what they look like. Apparently it turns it a really, really, really dark green. And I didn't do the iron paint on my board here because I haven't touched this paint in quite some time, and if anyone wants to take a nice whiff, my iron paint doesn't smell that nice. It's got really thick and there's actually rust in it. I did do it on the rim on this. I'll save everyone the smell. I will not do that today. It does not smell nice at all. But the iron paint, if I remember, was thicker and it was harder to apply even when I got it fresh. And yeah, so when you get it, it has instructions with it. It tells you that you need to do 2 coats of primer, and then it wants it to dry for, I think, 12 hours. And then they recommend a coat of the paint, and then you have to let the paint dry. I've done that on this one. I did not use primer on this. I used primer on those. I almost think the primer's kind of a waste. If you look on some of the pieces, you can actually see the red through it. Like on this piece here, under the bronze you can see red. That is the primer that you're seeing, because I put on really thin coats and I like the way that it looked. And I lost my mic. Maybe? No. So I like the way that it looked. You know, you can go more coats if you want. But so there's that. And then so the basic technique is you turn your bowl. It has to be dry, like this bowl as well. I did this literally last night, and I did 2 coats of the copper, and I did 2 coats of the bronze on the lid on this one, and I let the first coat on these dry for I think about a half hour is what it recommends. I did the second coat, and then you need to spray activator on it while it's wet. That's what it recommends. I haven't tried it otherwise. And then that's what I got with this. And then I sprayed some Deft on it, just because the color does change when you put the depth on it. I also think it stops the reaction. I think, if you leave it on there, it will react longer than you think it will. I would normally leave it for a couple days, so you can get, for example, how far this one went, because of all the reaction time that I let it have. I think once you spray the activator or the depth or whatever finish you're going to use, that it stops the reaction. I wouldn't recommend wiping anything on it. Don't ask me how I know. So once you put the lacquer on it, you're fine. You need to have something on it because if you touch, say you touch something wet, you had a water bottle, whatever, if you touch the bowl, it will then leach that finish until you have something on it. I would recommend spraying something on it. I always use just the Def Lacquer. It's what I have. I bought a whole bunch of cans of it a while ago, and it works for me, so that's just what I like to use. I like to use these where my mom works. She gets, they have tons of tape. I think it's all electrical tape. And so I use these containers to put the paint in. And then that way, I don't have to dip in the container, and it just works out better for me. So I'll do probably the inside of this bowl. I don't want to spray the activator because it will rust. At least it does on mine. If I don't have it covered, it will rust essentially whatever it touches. I'm not sure why it does that, probably because it's a rust activator in some sort of fashion, but I can assure you that it will rust whatever it touches. You can see my chuck doesn't
Hang on 1 second, I'm going to change out.
I'll wait here then.
Okay, is it working?
Can you hear me now? Okay. Okay, so, is this thing on or no?
What is the activator for?
The activator, so if you look at this piece here, this piece doesn't have any activator on it. You can see the rim, which I did with metal paint, is already rusty, and that's because there was, if you open up this can, which if you want to, you're more than welcome, it already has rust in it, so it's already activated, I would assume, because you go in there and it's like 4 different colors and it smells amazing. To where the copper, you see the copper is still copper colored. It will stay like that, like this one has. And this was brushed on, and I wanted to have that brush finish. You can get a smoother looking finish if you want, but it won't change color unless you put the oxidizer, or whatever you want to call it, on the piece.
So that turns into greenish color, right?
Yeah, and so if you look at, look on this, this is the colors that it will turn it. Normally the copper will turn green, and I think bronze turns blue. There's 2 different color activators. If you look at the instructions, they say you can spray the copper or the bronze with either one. You can say there's a difference there. Yeah, I'm not going to argue with you, but it looks pretty similar to me. Maybe if I would have let these sit longer, because I let these dry with the activator on there for an hour or 2 last night, because I literally put this together last night. So yeah, the copper I would assume is going to turn green, because I don't see any of my copper that, I mean, you could argue that this one is a little more blue than, say, this one is more of that copper patina green. I'm not going to argue with you. I would say they're both green in my book, but that's just me personally. Any other questions before I start to actually paint it? Let's just show you how I do it.
Do you brush on the copper, or?
I do brush on the copper, yeah. And so what I like to do is when I'm at home, I'll have my lathe and I'll turn my lathe on its slowest speed, which I think is around 200 RPMs. And then, so I use these foam brushes just because they're cheap. You can use whatever you want. It does say that you can clean this stuff up with soapy water. I always wear gloves because I'm messy. And then I will literally just have my lathe on the slow speed. I like doing it this way. It gives me more of a brushed look. I'm not looking to have it look like it was dipped in copper. I kind of like it to look like it's maybe handmade, because it kind of is. And like I said, it normally comes out a little nicer if the lathe has power. And then I like to be careful on the rim. I like having the rim a different color. I think it gives it a different kind of look, different kind of touch to it, accents it. I haven't done all of them that way, but I do like to do it that way. And at this point, you would take your blue or your green activator, and then you would just go ahead and give it a couple spritz. I like to take it off the lathe when I do that because the rusting issues that I mentioned before. And then what I'll often do, it says that you can use like a sea sponge, any sort of sponge that you got. You can either, again, I'll take those little containers and I have poured some of the what do you call it, the patina solution into one of these. I've dipped a rag because I don't have sponges. Dipped a rag in there, and then you can kind of just dot the area that you want. Because if you just spray it just, you kind of get what you get. And then sometimes you'll have drips that'll form. I did have a hollow form that I couldn't find. I might have sold it, I don't remember. That I just totally doused it and let it drip because I wanted it to look that way. But if you just take I use these, sometimes I'll rip off pieces of the sponge brushes here, and you just kind of dot it in there. You can get a more controlled pattern of the patina if you want it in certain areas. If you wanted, like say, the bottom of it to look patina, which is what I was kind of going for on this one, because I wanted it to look, let's just say, like your bowl. Gotta turn my phone off, I guess. And I wanted it to look as if the bowl had just been sitting and it was a copper bowl, and it had just sat there and patinaed, to where the moisture that would collect in the bowl would naturally go towards the bottom, which is why I tried to get a lot more of the patina solution on the bottom of the bowl, and then the top of it is just freckled, to where I literally went with the activator from here, sprayed it, and then I took my little piece of ripped up cloth and just kind of dabbed around and kind of spread it around a little bit. I do want to be careful because I do it when it's wet, and that's what the directions say to do. Like I said, I haven't tried it otherwise. And that seems to work out pretty well for me. And then, like I said, that one was literally done last night, so that's why that one's not as smooth as the other one, and somebody can't take a hint. So, and then same thing for the outside. I would dip this in the bronze color, and I would just go on the outside, very careful of the rim. If I try to do the rim, I'll take the steady rest on my lathe, have it very slow, and literally just let it brush in there. It doesn't work too well with the iron paint that I have because it's the consistency of, I almost want to say tapioca pudding, because there's literally like little clumps of metal and stuff in there. I always remember that one being thicker and harder to deal with, which is why there's only one piece that has that on there instead of several. I do like the way that the iron looked. It does kind of, it does have a nice color to it. It was just a harder paint to work with, and so I've always just kind of gone towards the copper or the bronze. And because I'm not going to spray the activator, and I don't think they kind of get the idea of painting. We can sit here and watch paint dry. Anybody else have any questions?
Where do you get your supplies from?
As I mentioned, I got everything at Craft Supply. To get everything that I have here, and that includes the big bottle of primer, which I don't really think is absolutely necessary. You can, where was one of them on here? This one, where you can see the red, maybe not on camera, but there, you can see the red under the bronze, and I kind of like the way that looks. But this one here and this one as well have no primer. So it's not like you have to have the primer. The primer is not cheap. None of it is cheap. But when I looked it up while I was sitting down, this is literally like $88, $85 worth of stuff. That's for the big jar of the primer, because I figured I'd need a lot more primer than everything else. And then these are the small jars. They do make bigger jars. But unless you're going to do a lot of this, I wouldn't recommend getting the bigger jars, especially of the iron, because the iron kind of went bad on me. It did still work. And then the activators, they sell the spritzer bottles extra. The spritzer bottles are like $1.25. And then the other thing about those spritzer bottles that I guess I should point out, I literally haven't touched this stuff before yesterday for about a year and a half. Just because my wife and I have 2 kids under 3 now, and I had a lawn service business because I'm looking for punishment. So, let me take care of this real quick. I don't want to get that stuff in there. If you look at my nozzles, you can see, maybe, you see how it's all essentially rusted inside the straw? This one doesn't spritz anymore.
Excuse me, does the primer come in different colors?
No, the primer is what you see here.
What is it? What color?
Red. And that's the color I would call it. So if you look on the board here, on this handy-dandy thing, I put tape in between these just to help me. And then, so this is 2 coats of the primer. And then this is, both of these are 2 coats of the bronze. And then this was the blue, this was the green patina, and this is 2 coats of the copper with the green and the blue as well. The bottom strip here is all the rust activator. I believe that's what they call it. It's green. Yeah, the actual rust activator. I sprayed that on those just so I could see, because I'd never actually tried the rust activator on those, because it doesn't recommend that. I mean, it doesn't say you can't. You can use whatever you want. And that gave it a very different color green, which I thought was kind of interesting. So that's the color of the primer. But the idea is not to really show the primer. That would be my takeaway from it. I do like the way that it does look in the background. Like this one, you can see the little striations in there. And that's, I almost always use the foam brushes, just because they're cheap. It does say that you can put it in an airless sprayer if you want. It says you can do a whole bunch of stuff.
Ray, is there any wood substrate that you found works better than others?
I would think that that's where the primer might come in handy. If you have a very porous wood that doesn't seem to want to take it too well, I have a feeling that's what the primer is for. I think this was maple of some sort. I didn't even really look. I just kind of grabbed it out of my bin. And I really haven't had any problems with it. I do believe, I don't think this is cherry. I don't think I used the primer on this one either. And I think this one turned out rather nice. So I haven't noticed any real problem with that, but I do have the primer if that were to be a problem. I have one thing to note on this piece, because my iron paint is old and probably not good. It has a consistency, like I said, of tapioca pudding. When I went to put this on, I wasn't able to brush it on. I actually had to dip it in with the thing. I actually smeared it on both sides of the rim just because it was really clumpy. And so you are able to, I took 180 grit sandpaper and I sanded down the edges to get, because I got that iron paint where I didn't want it. And then just redid the top of it. So if you mess up, you can sand it back. I mean, you probably won't be able to sand it back to the point that you have naked wood again, but you can sand it back to the point that it's hard to see where I messed up at.
Do the containers tell you what the chemical constituents are, the solvents are?
If you'd like to look at it, I can pass it back to you, but I have no idea.
Okay.
I drive a semi.
Do you get an SDS sheet from Craft Supply?
What was that?
Do you get an SDS sheet from Craft Supply?
I don't know.
Safety data sheet, which would tell you.
I might have. They gave me a whole packet. They actually have a nice write-up for it. It's like 2 pages of how they suggest that you do it. But I do know that if you open that jar, I wouldn't recommend doing it without gloves on. There are actual particulates of, say, copper or bronze or whatever in it. You can actually see it a little bit in this. You can see the different colors, like almost swirly colors in there. I would say that's probably the copper that's actually in there, because it's not just one flat color. There's like 2 or 3 different shades of the copper color in there, and I would just think that that's just different concentrations of the copper. It does recommend that you shake or stir it up, which I normally try to do. But as far as the chemical makeup of it, I'm a truck driver, so.
Just to be clear, you got 2 different colored paints And then you've got 2 different patinas, and then you've got 2 rusts.
There's 3 different colors of the paint that I have here. There's 3 different colors on this bowl. The inside is copper. The rim is the iron paint that's already rusted because, like I had said before, that my iron paint is kind of not nice. And then the outside is a bronze paint.
Okay, then you have
And then there's 3 different activators. There's the blue, the green, and then the rust activator. The rust activator is only recommended or suggested to be used with the iron paint. If you look on there, I have used it on the copper and the bronze. I can't really tell personally a big difference between the blue and the green. I think the bronze turns blue, and I think the copper turns green. It doesn't seem to matter which one you use. When I do it, I normally grab the blue for the bronze because I kind of want it to, I think of like the Roman bronze sword. That's the kind of color that you kind of maybe want to shoot for. So there's 3 paints, there's a primer, and then there's 3 activators. You don't have to buy it all. They don't sell it in a kit that I found. I had to buy everything individually. Like I said, it was like $85, something like that.
Whatever first got you trying this? Did you see the craft supply catalog, or you see somebody's work?
I don't even remember. Like I said, I bought this stuff like a year and a half, 2 years ago, and it was just interesting. I had very similar luck as Ken, and I got a whole bunch of the craft supply gift cards from here. For a while there, I was winning quite a bit of those. So, I'm not saying that the club bought it all for me, but it almost seems like it. So, I didn't buy everything at once, but if you got 4 or 5 of them things sitting around, and it's like, well, $30 plus shipping wasn't too bad, or whatever I ended up paying back then. I don't know if the price has gone up or down.
If you, before you put on the copper, you would just have a plain finish on the bowl, like a maple bowl.
I would have no finish on the bowl.
Well, you don't put any finish on it all, if you want, just, instead of not use the primer, just use the copper. You don't have to put any kind of finish on the bare wood.
Correct. I didn't.
No siding sealer or anything?
No. Literally, I went out to my pole barn because I heated it up when I got home from work. My wife and I were doing some errands, and I have a bunch of rough turn bowls. I finished turning both bowls, sanded them, and did both of them in 2 hours. Like, I got into my barn, which was 85 degrees, which was nice, and I finished turn, sanded, and did what you see here in like 2 hours on 2 bowls. So I didn't put nothing. Just, did it with the brush like you've seen. I did the board, with the 2 coats of the primer, just to see if it made a difference on the board, and because I figured I should for the display. So yeah, I didn't put anything on there, just put, the paint on the raw, maple or whatever it happened to be.
You let it dry before you put the activator on it?
No, it says that you're supposed to spray the activator while it's wet. And I think the wetter it is, the better it works. If you look at the large bronze vase that I did, I'm going to go ahead and assume, just because there's not a lot, of the actual patina color on this, that this whole thing wasn't very wet. You can see the lines where probably the foam brush, because I did this again while the lathe was spinning, I maybe did too thin of a coat, because I was just doing it this way, and you can see the lines might be where there was thicker areas of paint that probably reacted better with the activator. And I think I did spray this one while the lathe was turning, just to try to get everything covered evenly as best as I could. Have my lathe spinning 200, whatever, it ends up going slow. And then that's probably why this doesn't have nearly as much color as everything else. So,
What is your drying time then?
if you look at the can, I think it says that it's about a half hour. My shop was 85 degrees and extremely low humidity last night. When it seemed dry to me, I did it. I didn't put a stopwatch on there, but I put a coat on this one, or put a coat on the other one, set that aside, finished turning this one, sanded it, put a coat on this one, set it there, grabbed it, did the other one. Really wasn't paying attention to how much time I let it sit. I did 3 things last night. I did those 2 bowls, and then that. I did let that sit for, I think, an hour for the primer, just because I think it says that you're supposed to. But it also says you're supposed to wait 12 hours for after the second coat of primer to let it cure. I just set it right next to my wood stove. It was fine.
So you
Just
said
send
that.
10 or 12 of those shop degrees over to my shop.
I mean, there's probably about 15 degrees over there, you know, those two logs over there.
You always or never put a finish coat on the outside?
I always put a finish coat on the outside, because I've had it to where I didn't, and then just because I hadn't got around to it yet, and I had touched it with wet hands, and the activator, the patina on it went away. Like my wet hands, you know, like removed the patina from it.
Do you use anything besides black?
That's all I've really, I use the depth lacquer here for just about everything. I wouldn't put a wipe on
Would that
top.
make a difference?
Hmm?
You wouldn't wipe on poly?
I would not.
What if you did layer shellac first and then that?
If you sprayed the shellac on, I think you'd be fine. I wouldn't wipe anything
Okay.
on it. And you could do, if you wanted to do a wipe on poly, I would suggest, you know, maybe doing the 1 pound cut or whatever of the shellac, or really thin shellac, just something, just to get it to where you can't actually wipe off the patina that, you know, that you were trying to achieve on there. I found that when I touched it with anything wet, that patina like washed off, you know, or maybe it just wasn't deep enough. I'm not sure what it was, but I always spray it just to make sure it doesn't go anywhere. And then the patina color does change once you put a lacquer on it. The color does change a little bit.
Which way does it go, Ray?
Hmm?
Which way does it go? Does it darken or lighten?
You would ask that. I don't remember, but it does change. I think it gets more of a wet look to where, you know, like I said, I just didn't want to spray this because I didn't want to rust everything here. But it does change a little bit, like I said. So you see like the iron paint here, it's got that dull brown color. And then whichever one has, you can see like it's a lighter color brown, to where it's the same paint, same thing's been done to it. This one just has a light finish on it. I might have done, I don't think I did the gloss on this one because I didn't want it to be glossy. I might use this satin or whatever to where I did the shiny red and copper. So I would say that based on this, maybe it lightens it up a little bit, but yeah.
If you wanted to go through part of that where you painted that on, would you do that after you sprayed on your activator or before?
If I wanted to what?
Go through it, like sand through it or something to make it a little bit blotchy looking?
You would want to, the activator should be the last thing you do before you spray your finish on it. To where you have to, like, so if you wanted this to be blotchy, like right now, if you wanted this to be blotchy, you'd have to sand the areas that you wanted, use like a sea sponge, whatever. You could take your paint and, you know, put your paint where you want it. You could just do that instead of painting the whole thing like I've done. And then you can take a sponge or whatever, dip it in a thing of the activator of your choice, and then you can blot the activator where you want it to be. You just have to be careful that it doesn't drip if you don't want it to look like it's dripped. To where, like on this piece here, I focused the activator in the bottom of the bowl to make it look like the condensation had, you know, patina at the bottom of the bowl more than anything else.
Okay, what I was getting at is if you wanted some of your wood to show through,
Then you wouldn't paint that part.
so. Yeah, but then you get kind of a sharp line. You wanted a kind of a
If you
blended
use a sea sponge or some sort of, you know, jagged edge sponge,
Yeah.
and you only paint the area where you want it, the sponges are really irregular. If you get that kind, you know, if you were to take this sponge and just do that, you're gonna have more of a sharper line. But, you know, I mean, you can probably do whatever you want. I know that if I paint something and try to take the paint off, it's not gonna look like regular wood anymore.
Because you have to paint it while the paint's, or you have to activate it while the paint's wet.
Yes. And that's what the directions
You
say.
can't sand it, George, because it'll be dry.
Well, I meant after you put the activator on, you could sand through parts, couldn't you?
You could try whatever you'd like.
Just what you figure.
Right?
I probably could. I've never tried it, because
After the activator, you can still take a wet sponge and.
I've done it with my hands before. I mean, so, and it just kind of smeared it. I'm not saying it took it off, but it smeared it, that's for sure.
So on your final finish, gloss versus semi-gloss,
That's what I like. I
I
mean,
mean, which one do you prefer?
I prefer gloss. I mean, everyone likes shiny stuff.
People are like, "Oh,
Is there a solvent that you can use in with your paint, thin it out so you can use it with airbrush or something like that?
I have no idea. The directions might say what you could use. It does say, you know, in the instructions and even on the cans that you can put it through an airless sprayer. You know, this is rather loose,
What,
but the metal one is not. But it also says on the iron one that you can. I wouldn't, but that's just me.
well, the airbrush wouldn't be airless.
Yeah, I'm not so sure that would work, because,
Or whatever. I mean, I have an airbrush. You could probably use it.
yeah, the paint's got actual solids in it, so you need to use a big nozzle for the airbrush to get it to flow through.
Well, I understand that, but,
Buy some of them, try it.
huh?
Buy some of them, and try it.
Well, I'm trying to get an idea what will happen when I do it. It doesn't mean
Can I
I'm
just
afraid to
throw
try.
Yeah.
Ron Campbell did a demonstration at his first retreat on this stuff, and, you know, we played around with it. And like, if you want just small areas, you could just kind of dab your brush and kind of do a dry brush truck technique and just kind of leave some streaks. You know, there's a lot of things you could do that way. But, too, as far as where you can get it, I searched online. I think Sevens carried it at the time. That was a couple years ago. And now I've seen it, Hobby Lobby's got it on the shelf too. So.
Perfect. You know if they sell everything individually, or?
Yeah, I don't know if they have everything, but I know they've got the individual paints, reagents, and a small kit.
Sure.
name that too.
Anybody else?
Thank you.
Can we good?
Are you all set?